they say, Maxine, please don't say impeachment anymore. And when they say that, I say impeachment, 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 impeachment.
You've already said that you support impeachment of the president.
I think it's certainly something that needs to be on the agenda. I absolutely do.
I mean, Bill Clinton was impeached but not removed from office. We don't want to be in a situation where the president is deranged and we've got nothing that we can do about it.
Well, the midterms are fast approaching, and some Democrats are having a tougher time hiding their obsession with impeachment. Ken Starr, the man who led the Clinton investigation in the 90s that brought about the former president's impeachment, calls the process hell for the country. He's out with a new book today titled Contempt, a memoir of the Clinton investigation. And we're also joined by former U.S. Attorney and Fox News contributor Andy McCarthy. Gentlemen, it's great to see you. Judge Starr, let's go to you first. I remember the 1998 like it was yesterday and all that was happening at the time. Bill Clinton at the time had about a 40% approval rating, 42%, mid-40s. But after he was impeached, his rating, approval numbers started going up, up, up. Is that part of what you're thinking may happen here if the Democrats actually go for the brass ring on impeachment?
Well, it could very well happen because the American people, and part of the message in my book, is be careful what you ask for, because I do think impeachment is hell. It's hell to go through for the American people. Even though there are very strong feelings on one side and then on the other side, that is not our system. We have impeachment in the Constitution. It's an important last resort. And the country did not feel as a whole that Bill Clinton, for all of his crimes, and he committed crimes and we proved that he committed crimes, that he should actually be removed in his last year and a half in office. We have elections in the country, and those elections mean something. Midterms coming up. Why in the world are the Democrats, some of the Democrats, seriously discussing impeachment? I think it's folly, but that's the politics. I think it's just very bad for the country. It is ultra divisive.
Judge, if you could do it all over again, would you still accept the job as independent counsel? I mean, knowing what you know now. I know it's a ridiculous question in a way. But...
No, I think about that question, and the answer is yes, I would. But I would not have made the second time around the blunders I made, especially dealing with the press, as I describe in the book. My decision to sit down with a real snake in the grass named Stephen Brill and to be interviewed by him, and for him then to completely distort what I had to say, and other journalists said that was a distortion because you were distorting what I had to say. And that brought on an investigation and so forth. So when I think about how I conducted it, we tried to conduct it, and I think we did, with integrity, I'd make a lot fewer mistakes. And
Rosenstein worked for your team of prosecutors way back when. Andy, I also want to get your thoughts on the new text messages released today by Congressman Mark Meadows. They show more communications between the former FBI agents Peter Strzok and Lisa Page, and to some they point to a coordinated media leak campaign intended to harm President Trump. The correspondence ends with Strzok congratulating Page on an article being planted on Carter Page. Andy, your thoughts? Are there other ways to read this?
Well, there are a couple of ways to read it, Laura, although I must say that, you know, when you have a situation like we have here, where you've had a lot of evidence of high-ranking FBI officials leaking, you have to take that into account. I've been in investigations where people, I don't know that they use this phrase as clumsy as, you know, our press leak strategy, but there are some times that you have to have a strategy because you're being killed by leaks and you're trying to tamp down on them. Then there's another way of looking at it, which has never been my preferred way as a prosecutor, but there are prosecutors who endorse this, and that is this idea of tickling the wires, this idea that you take information that you have from your investigation, leak it to the press so that it gets out, and then as you monitor your wires, see if the people who are mentioned in the stories say and do things that are indicative of consciousness of guilt or concealing evidence and the like. Again, I don't think that's a proper way to go about an investigation, but it is done.
Well, his Strzok attorney, Aiton Goldman, said that the term media leak strategy in Strzok's text refers to a department-wide initiative to detect and stop leaks to the media. And then Mark Meadows responds to today by saying The American people aren't buying his misdirection. In fact, Mr. Strzok did lead an effort to control leaks. As his attorney suggests, it's worth mentioning that such an alleged effort was clearly a failure. It should raise questions whether there was a serious effort at all. And finally, Andy, on the issue of impeachment, you're very skeptical about the idea that the Democrats would either have enough people to vote for impeachment, members, or that they would be able to get any Republicans on board enough to get to that critical level.
Well, I think if they were wise, they'd heed Judge Starr's sage words. But I think if they're just going to play brass knuckles, brass tacks politics, they're going to need more than a margin of a few congressmen or representatives in order to have enough in the way of numbers to get even the simple majority that you need to file articles of impeachment in the House. I just think they'll need a more comfortable margin if they want to go about that.
All right, Judge, finally, does Mueller need to wrap this up, Judge Starr? I mean, it's like he hasn't gotten everything he's wanted. He didn't get Trump for a sit-down. Doesn't look like it's going to happen. Is it time to kind of get the show on the road here?
Well, given what we know, there's no evidence of collusion. And I think that the American people have wanted to know that for a long time. The two indictments that have been returned do not point to collusion at all. So, yes, especially with respect to Russian collusion. Now, there is another perspective, and that is we don't know what other assignments he's been given by the Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein. So stay tuned. I want to say just a closing word on impeachment. As I describe in the book, 31 Democrats in the House of Representatives voted in favor of impeachment, and yet even with that, modest, but still, 31 is not nothing. 31 Democrats supporting, we see what eventually happened. There is another way, and I think that way needs to be discussed. Is the impeachment process something that should be reserved for the gravest kinds of offenses, high treason and the like? Is that the way we should approach it?
High crimes.
Yeah, truly high crimes and misdemeanors. Let's get rid of parsing language and say this is the disruption of an election. So what should we do? And there was not a serious conversation with respect to a resolution of censure. We need to have that debate.
All right, fantastic. Thank you, gentlemen.